What if Hollywood's most dependable leading man vanished from fame, only to return decades later and win an Oscar at 77? Don Ameche's life is one of quiet discipline, unexpected comebacks, and a legacy that defied Hollywood's usual rules.
You'll give me the honor of driving you around while you look for a job, huh?
Yes, sir.
And for that, you pay me double?
Oh, and a great big daddy tip.
Oh, that sounds like good business.
What do you say?
I say no.
If you love classic Hollywood stories of talent, scandal-free stardom, and unforgettable comebacks, don't forget to subscribe to Sajad Classic for more golden-era legends. Don Ameche's story begins in the busy little town of Kenosha, Wisconsin, where he was born Dominic Felix Ameche on May 31st, 1908. His childhood was nothing like the glamorous Hollywood world he would later enter. Instead, he grew up in a crowded house filled with 8 children, loud conversations, and a blend of cultures that shaped him long before fame ever did. His father, Felix Ameche, had come to America from Montemonaco in Italy, carrying with him the warmth, discipline, and old-world charm of a traditional Italian household. His mother, Barbara Hertel, added her German-Swiss heritage to the mix, giving the family a unique blend of customs, food, and languages. In a home like this, life was rarely quiet. Kids ran in and out of rooms, relatives visited often, and stories flowed freely at the dinner table. In such an environment, young Don quickly learned how to stand out. He wasn't the strongest or the loudest, but he was the most entertaining. He had a natural gift for mimicry, copying people's voices, making funny expressions, reenacting scenes he witnessed during the day. Family members would laugh, neighbors would applaud, and Don began to realize something important. People loved watching him perform. As he grew older, school teachers noticed the same spark. Don could speak confidently, hold attention effortlessly, and deliver lines as if he were born on stage. Yet, in a big immigrant family, dreams of acting were not considered practical. His parents wanted stability for him, a respected profession. So Don followed a sensible path and enrolled in Marquette University, later transferring to the University of Wisconsin, aiming to become a lawyer. But even in college, the stage kept calling him back. While he studied law and attended lectures like everyone else, he spent more and more time in rehearsal halls and drama groups. He found himself volunteering for college plays, helping with theater productions, and performing in campus shows. Every time he stepped onto the stage, every laugh, every clap, made the idea of becoming a lawyer feel a little less exciting. Soon Don realized that no matter how much he tried to focus on law, he felt most alive under the lights, facing an audience. Performing wasn't a hobby for him anymore. It was becoming a part of who he was. That internal shift, quiet but powerful, marked the beginning of a journey that would eventually take him from a crowded Midwestern home to the heights of Hollywood stardom. From that point onward, the path of law slowly faded, and the world of performance opened its arms, ready to shape the future Don Ameche the world would come to know. While still in college, Don Ameche's pull toward performance grew stronger with every passing year. What began as casual involvement in college dramatics soon turned into something far more serious. He wasn't just acting for fun anymore. He was learning timing, projection, and how to hold an audience. After leaving university, he took the next bold step and joined regional theater, performing wherever there was a stage and an audience willing to watch. These early years were not glamorous. They were filled with long rehearsals, modest pay, and constant travel, but they gave Ameche something invaluable: experience. It was during this period that his greatest early asset began to shine: his voice. Don Ameche possessed a naturally warm, smooth, and expressive voice, perfectly suited for the growing world of radio. In the early 1930s, radio was America's primary source of entertainment, reaching millions of homes every night. Ameche found his way behind the microphone and quickly discovered that radio didn't just suit him, it elevated him. Listeners were drawn to the calm confidence in his speech, his precise diction, and the effortless charm he brought to every role. Whether playing romantic leads, dramatic heroes, or light-hearted characters, his voice carried emotion without exaggeration. Before long, Ameche became a radio star, appearing regularly on popular programs. People across the country began recognizing his voice, even if they didn't yet know his face. In an era when radio stars were as influential as movie stars, Ameche's popularity grew rapidly. He became a familiar presence in American living rooms, earning a loyal audience and a reputation as one of radio's most dependable performers. Ironically, at this stage of his career, Don Ameche was already famous, yet he had never appeared in a single Hollywood film. That changed when studio executives began paying attention. Hollywood was always on the lookout for talent that could transition smoothly into movies, especially performers with proven public appeal. Ameche's radio success reached the ears of executives at 20th Century Fox, who recognized that his voice, charm, and stage discipline made him an ideal candidate for the screen. In 1935, Fox offered him his first film opportunity, marking the moment when Don Ameche crossed from sound waves to cinema. His transition was surprisingly smooth. Unlike some radio actors who struggled in front of the camera, Ameche had already developed confidence, timing, and emotional control through years of stage and radio work. That first Hollywood appearance opened the door to something far greater. What had started in college drama clubs and late-night radio broadcasts was now evolving into a full-fledged film career. Don Ameche had arrived in Hollywood, not as an unknown hopeful, but as a proven entertainer ready for stardom. By the mid-1930s, Don Ameche had reached a crucial turning point in his young Hollywood career. Until then, studio executives largely saw him as a charming, good-looking performer with a pleasant voice, ideal for light romance or musical roles. Sins of Man, 1936, was the film that quietly challenged that image and signaled that Ameche could handle something far more serious. In Sins of Man, Ameche played a young man torn between family loyalty, personal ambition, and moral responsibility.
Oh, poor Gabriel. If you could only hear, I'm sure you'd understand a whole lot better than our father does. But one day I'll show him. I'll prove to him that I'm not crazy.
The story revolves around generational conflict and ethical choices, and Ameche's character is placed under constant pressure to choose between doing what is right and doing what is expected of him. Unlike his later romantic leads, this role required restraint rather than charm. He could not rely on humor or music. Instead, he had to communicate inner conflict through expressions, pauses, and controlled emotion. What stood out most was how earnest and grounded his performance felt. Ameche portrayed his character as thoughtful and conflicted, never melodramatic. He allowed moments of doubt and hesitation to linger on screen, making the struggle feel real rather than theatrical. This was a noticeable departure from the polished, almost effortless charm audiences would soon associate with him. Critics at the time took note of this shift. While Sins of Man was not a major box office sensation, reviewers frequently pointed out that Ameche showed unexpected dramatic weight. Trade papers and newspaper critics described him as convincing and sincere, noting that he handled emotionally demanding scenes with surprising maturity for such a young actor. Several reviews suggested that Fox had found more than just another handsome leading man. They had found someone who could grow into substantial roles. An interesting piece of trivia about Sins of Man is that it came during a period when studios were actively testing their contract players. Fox deliberately placed Ameche in a heavier drama to see whether he could carry more serious material. His performance reportedly impressed studio executives enough that they began offering him higher-profile roles shortly afterward, accelerating his rise within the studio system. In retrospect, Sins of Man may not be the most famous title in Don Ameche's filmography, but it plays an important role in his story. It was the film that proved he was more than a pleasant voice and a charming smile. It revealed an actor capable of sincerity, depth, and moral complexity, laying the foundation for the major successes that followed later in the decade. A year later, Don Ameche took a decisive step toward mainstream popularity with Love is News in 1937, a brisk newspaper world romantic comedy that paired him with two rising stars of the era, Tyrone Power and Loretta Young. In the film, Ameche played Steve Layton, a confident, fast-talking reporter who thrives on headlines, competition, and quick decisions.
What do you say we bury the hatchet? I got a tough job in my hands, and I need your help. After all, I gave you your first job. I watched you develop into the best newspaper reporter in New York, and believe me, Stevie, I'm proud of you. We've had our little differences, but what about it? We've had a lot of great times together, too, haven't we? Remember the night I dressed you up as a chambermaid and you stole the papers out of Colonel Randolph's apartment?
His character is sharp, ambitious, and always one step ahead, perfectly suited to the snappy dialogue and rapid pacing of the story. What made Ameche stand out in Love Is News was his comic timing and natural rhythm. He delivered lines with ease, never forcing a joke, allowing the humor to flow organically from character interaction rather than exaggerated behavior. Against Tyrone Power's intense screen presence and Loretta Young's elegance, Ameche held his ground effortlessly. Instead of being overshadowed, he balanced the trio, adding warmth and approachability to the film's energetic tone. Critics at the time responded favorably to Ameche's performance. Reviews noted that he brought freshness and credibility to the role, praising his ability to make a potentially stock romantic character feel lively and believable. Trade papers highlighted his easy charm and remarked that he was becoming one of Fox's most dependable young actors. An interesting piece of trivia about Love Is News is that it was part of Fox's strategy to test Ameche alongside bigger names. The studio wanted to see if he could compete with Power's rising star power, and the experiment worked. Ameche's relaxed confidence contrasted nicely with Power's intensity, convincing executives that he was ready for larger, more prominent roles. That same year, Ameche appeared in You Can't Have Everything, 1937, a film that allowed him to display a different, more playful side of his talent. This time, the story leaned heavily into romance mixed with musical elements.
Here we are, two silhouettes in the blue. Here we are, bidding the stardust adieu. Soon you'll be lost in the glory of dreams. Yet, my lovely one, strange as it seems,
And Ameche was given the opportunity to sing and perform in a lighter, more expressive manner. His role emphasized optimism, charm, and emotional openness, traits that would soon become central to his screen persona. In this film, Ameche showed that he wasn't limited to dialogue-driven comedy or drama. He moved comfortably through musical sequences, proving that he could blend acting, singing, and romantic appeal without appearing forced. His performance felt relaxed and genuine, reinforcing the idea that he was an all-around entertainer rather than a one-dimensional leading man. Critics appreciated this versatility. Reviews often described him as pleasant, appealing, and surprisingly adaptable, noting that he transitioned smoothly between spoken scenes and musical moments. The year 1939 became one of the most defining chapters of Don Ameche's entire career, marking both his artistic growth and his rise to cultural icon status. Within the span of a single year, he demonstrated two completely different sides of his talent: refined comedy and serious biographical drama, and succeeded brilliantly in both. In Midnight, 1939, directed by Billy Wilder and co-written with Charles Brackett, Ameche stepped into the world of high society romantic comedy, a genre that relied heavily on timing, intelligence, and understatement.
All right, fellas, now I'll explain it once more. Each of us puts in 5 francs. The guy that finds it gets the whole thing. Say we get 1,000 of us. That's a purse of 5,000 francs to the winner.
How can you find one woman in 4 million people?
He played Jacques Picot, a wealthy and charming Parisian aristocrat who becomes entangled in a web of romantic misunderstandings involving Claudette Colbert's character, a clever American woman pretending to be a baroness. Ameche's role required comic restraint rather than exaggeration. Instead of chasing laughs, he allowed humor to emerge naturally through dialogue, reactions, and subtle shifts in expression. His performance was smooth, urbane, and confident, perfectly suited to Wilder's fast-moving, razor-sharp script. Opposite Claudette Colbert, known for her sophisticated comic style, Ameche matched her beat for beat, never overpowering a scene and never falling behind. Critics praised Midnight as one of the smartest comedies of the year, and Ameche's performance received special attention for its elegance and precision. Trade publications described him as effortlessly polished and noted that he had matured into an actor capable of genuine sophistication. Today, Midnight is often regarded as one of the finest romantic comedies of the late 1930s. That same year, Ameche delivered what many consider the most culturally impactful performance of his career in The Story of Alexander Graham Bell, 1939. Taking on the role of the legendary inventor, Ameche portrayed Bell not as a distant genius, but as a deeply human figure, curious, passionate, frustrated, and emotionally driven.
Half an egg. Go on, fall apart. I'm sick of you. I'm sick of the very thought of you.
Hey.
That's what I think of the hours, the months we've wasted on that stupid idea. You say you're tired. You're hungry. Well, so am I. I want to live like other men just as much as you do. I want a decent bed to sleep in, decent food to eat. I'm in love. I want to get married. And I will. And if I ever have a child that so much as looks at a piece of copper wire or mentions electricity, I'll...
His performance emphasized Bell's obsession with sound and communication, as well as the emotional strain that came with innovation. Ameche showed Bell's moments of doubt, financial struggle, and personal sacrifice, particularly in scenes depicting his relationship with his wife, who was hearing impaired. This added a layer of tenderness and authenticity to the role, making the inventor relatable rather than mythic. Critics responded with overwhelming praise. Reviews highlighted Ameche's ability to bring intelligence and emotional warmth to a biographical role that could have easily become stiff or overly reverent. Many reviewers remarked that his portrayal made complex scientific ideas accessible and emotionally engaging. The film was both a critical and commercial success, strengthening Ameche's reputation as a serious actor. The cultural impact of the film was extraordinary. Ameche became so strongly associated with Alexander Graham Bell that the public began referring to the telephone as the Ameche. The nickname entered everyday language for years, a rare honor that demonstrated how deeply his performance resonated with audiences. One fascinating piece of trivia is that Ameche was so convincing in the role that people frequently assumed he had personal knowledge of Bell's inventions. Decades later, the association was still strong, so much so that in the 1980s, when Ameche appeared in Trading Places, a famous joke about the telephone directly referenced this long-standing connection. As the 1940s opened, Don Ameche was already an established star, and Four Sons, 1940, allowed him to deepen that status by stepping into far more serious emotional territory. The film was a remake of the 1928 silent classic and focused on the devastating impact of war on a single family. Ameche played Joseph Burnley, one of the sons whose life is shaped and ultimately shattered by the forces of war.
So you're a leader, are you? I'll tell you what you are. You're a traitor. You betrayed your family, your people, and your country. And strutting around in that uniform, making believe you're a hero, doesn't fool me one bit. I know what you are, and I hate you and everything you stand for.
His role required quiet intensity rather than grand speeches, and Ameche approached it with restraint and dignity. Instead of romantic charm, he emphasized moral responsibility, loyalty, and internal struggle. His character embodies the painful conflict between duty to country and devotion to family, and Ameche conveyed this through subtle expressions and controlled emotion. The performance added weight to his screen image, proving he could convincingly portray mature, serious men rather than just romantic leads. Critics responded positively to Ameche's dramatic turn. Reviews noted that he brought emotional authenticity and gravity to the role, helping ground the film's sentimental elements. An interesting piece of trivia is that Four Sons was released at a time when global tensions were rising, just before the United States entered World War II. The film's themes of sacrifice and loss resonated strongly with audiences, and Ameche's sober performance helped align him with the era's more serious cinematic tone. Soon after, Ameche made a striking shift in mood with That Night in Rio, 1941, one of the most colorful and playful films of his career. In this musical comedy, he took on dual roles, playing both a wealthy Brazilian aristocrat and a struggling American entertainer who impersonates him.
New business. Oh, and you, my dear?
Unfinished business.
Of course. How forgetful of me. We'll examine the facts and figures. You balance your budgets very fine. So stockholders of my affection, as your chairman, I never will resign.
The story allowed Ameche to showcase not only his charm, but also his comic timing, singing ability, and skill at character differentiation. What made his performance particularly impressive was how clearly he distinguished the two characters through posture, speech, and attitude. One was polished and refined, the other was more relaxed and mischievous. Opposite Carmen Miranda, whose explosive energy dominated the screen, Ameche provided a steady yet lively counterbalance, allowing their chemistry to flourish. Critics praised That Night in Rio as a joyful escapist musical, and Ameche's performance was singled out for its ease and versatility. Audiences responded enthusiastically, and the film became a major box office hit, further reinforcing his popularity during Hollywood's musical boom. One fascinating piece of trivia is that That Night in Rio was an early example of Fox's Good Neighbor policy films, designed to promote Latin American culture during World War II. By 1942, Don Ameche had become a familiar and trusted face at 20th Century Fox, and Girl Trouble allowed him to comfortably return to the kind of light musical comedy that had helped build his popularity. In the film, Ameche played H. Marshall Harry, a charming, good-natured young man caught in a web of romantic confusion and comedic misunderstandings.
You couldn't convince the bankers, but great heavens, man, use some initiative.
I did. I talked to Murdoch Flint.
The Tired King? What did he say?
I'll have to call my hairdresser and change my appointment.
Well, he said
Are
that...
you nearly through?
Yes, 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 and will you stop pestering me?
That sounds like Flint, all right. Tough as a Texas steer, but a smart businessman. Why didn't you tell me this in the first place?
Really?
I'm sorry. I'm so upset, I don't know what I'm saying.
Well, I don't blame you for being excited. How soon can we have the money?
Will you call me when you're finished?
Immediately. Immediately.
Splendid! Nice work, my boy. Nice work. I'm proud of you. Very proud. Good time. You have earned it. Huh? I'll call you later. Goodbye.
His character is easygoing and likable, the kind of man audiences could immediately root for, even when circumstances spiraled out of control. Rather than pushing for exaggerated comedy, Ameche relied on warmth and approachability. Musical moments gave him space to display his relaxed singing style, reinforcing the image of Ameche as an all-around entertainer rather than a strictly dramatic actor. Critics viewed Girl Trouble as pleasant but modest. Reviews often described the film as light and agreeable, noting that while it didn't break new ground, Ameche's presence gave it polish and stability. Though the film didn't become a classic, it quietly reinforced his value to the studio. An interesting bit of trivia is that Girl Trouble was produced during World War II, when Hollywood leaned heavily into escapist entertainment. Films like this were designed to offer audiences a break from wartime anxieties, and Ameche's reassuring screen persona fit that goal perfectly. The following year brought a dramatic shift in tone with Heaven Can Wait, 1943, one of the most celebrated films of Don Ameche's career. Directed by Ernst Lubitsch, a master of sophisticated comedy, the film gave Ameche a role that balanced humor with introspection.
Will you tell me how much is How to Make Your Husband Happy?
Look at her. Dr. Blossom Franklin. Now, where could a woman like that have found out how to make a husband happy? You certainly don't want to learn anything from her. You're so charming, so young, and so beautiful.
I beg your pardon. You shouldn't say such things.
You see, miss, when selling literature, one gets poetic. And you must forgive me if I take poetic license once in a while.
I'd rather not discuss it any further, and if you don't mind, I'd like to buy this book.
I do mind. Now, imagine I'm the man you're going to marry.
I couldn't imagine any such thing.
Well, what's the matter with me? You think I'm that terrible?
Ameche delivered each moment with restraint, allowing Lubitsch's signature wit to shine without overplaying a single scene. Critics were highly impressed. Reviews praised Ameche for his grace, intelligence, and perfect control, noting that he had matured into an actor capable of handling complex, dialogue-driven material. Many critics considered Heaven Can Wait one of the most elegant films of the year, and Ameche's performance was widely seen as central to its success. The film received multiple Academy Award nominations and is still regarded as a classic of sophisticated Hollywood storytelling. One fascinating piece of trivia is that Lubitsch initially hesitated to cast Ameche, unsure whether he could handle such a delicate tone. After seeing Ameche's restrained performance, however, Lubitsch reportedly acknowledged that he had found the ideal actor for the role. The film also permanently elevated Ameche's image, from a musical romantic lead to a refined, intelligent performer capable of timeless comedy. Only a year later, Ameche made a sharp turn in tone with It's in the Bag, 1945, proving once again how easily he could shift gears. In this broad comedy, he played Harold Messiter, a mild-mannered and somewhat bewildered man whose ordinary life descends into chaos through a series of misunderstandings and absurd situations.
Don Ameche, didn't you used to be in pictures?
Yeah, was for a while. Times got tough and I had to do something.
What happened?
Nothing much. I ran out of inventions. I used to invent things, you know.
Oh, I know. The telephone, telescope, telegraph.
Automobile, autogyroscope, automat.
Geology, geometry, geography.
Dictograph, phonograph, telegraph.
The role allowed Ameche to lean into physical comedy, exaggerated reactions, and playful timing. His flexibility and energy kept the film lively, and his natural likability made even the most ridiculous situations feel endearing rather than forced. Critics viewed It's in the Bag as light-hearted fun, especially welcome in the immediate post-war period. While reviews acknowledged that the film wasn't meant to be sophisticated, they praised Ameche for his comic enthusiasm and charm, noting that he carried the film with ease. One notable piece of trivia is that It's in the Bag. The film marked one of the last times Ameche would headline a broad comedy at the peak of his studio-era popularity. In So Goes My Love, 1946, Don Ameche plays Hiram Myers, a character built around steadiness, moral responsibility, and emotional restraint, rather than dramatic heroics.
I came to tell you, if you're looking for a substantial husband, don't count on me.
Hiram is an ordinary working man whose life is shaped by routine, duty, and quiet observation. He is not driven by ambition or social status, but by a strong sense of loyalty and decency, which governs every decision he makes throughout the story. Hiram becomes romantically attached to a woman whose life circumstances complicate any straightforward relationship. Rather than aggressively pursuing her, he remains patient and respectful, aware that emotional commitment carries consequences for both of them. Much of Hiram's struggle is internal. He deeply desires companionship and love, yet he consistently weighs those feelings against his sense of responsibility and fairness. This makes him a man constantly negotiating between personal happiness and ethical restraint. As the narrative unfolds, Hiram is repeatedly tested. Opportunities arise where he could act impulsively or selfishly, but he chooses understanding and self-control instead. His quiet endurance becomes the film's emotional core. He supports others emotionally, often putting their needs ahead of his own, even when it costs him personal fulfillment. Through these choices, Hiram emerges as a portrait of post-war masculinity, measured, emotionally aware, and grounded in moral accountability rather than bravado. Ameche's portrayal gives Hiram a strong inner life. By the film's conclusion, Hiram's journey is less about achieving romantic triumph and more about emotional growth, accepting life's limitations while holding on to dignity and compassion. The role was significant for Ameche because it deliberately moved him away from musical leads and romantic idealism. Critics responded respectfully, if not exuberantly. Reviews described Ameche's performance as sincere and restrained, noting that he brought dignity and emotional honesty to a gentle romantic drama. In Sleep, My Love, 1948, Don Ameche takes on the role of Bruce Elcott, a character carefully constructed to appear trustworthy while gradually revealing a deeply manipulative and dangerous nature.
He's back. He's back again. He's sitting there staring at you. Closer. Closer. You've got to get away. Run away. The balcony. The balcony. Climb and jump.
At the start of the film, Bruce presents himself as a devoted, attentive husband, outwardly concerned for his wife's well-being. He appears reasonable, affectionate, and protective, creating the impression of a man trying to care for a fragile spouse. As the story unfolds, it becomes clear that Bruce is deliberately orchestrating his wife's emotional and psychological instability. He subtly controls her environment, interferes with her sense of reality, and engineers situations designed to make her doubt her own perceptions. His actions are methodical rather than impulsive, and his manipulation is rooted in patience and planning. Bruce's objective is not driven by passion or jealousy, but by calculation and self-interest, which makes his behavior increasingly chilling. Throughout the film, Bruce remains composed and outwardly polite, even as his actions grow more sinister. His calm presence allows him to evade suspicion and manipulate those around him with ease. This duality, appearing loving while acting with cold intention, defines the role and makes Bruce Elcott one of the most unsettling characters Ameche ever portrayed. The performance marked a sharp departure from Ameche's earlier romantic and musical roles, demonstrating his ability to inhabit a character driven by control, secrecy, and moral darkness. Critics took notice of this bold shift. Reviews praised Ameche for stepping outside his established persona and convincingly portraying a darker psychological role. Trade papers highlighted his performance as one of the film's strongest elements, noting that he created tension through suggestion rather than action. For many critics, Sleep, My Love proved that Ameche could handle suspense and moral complexity just as effectively as romance or comedy. By the time Slightly French was released in 1949, Don Ameche had already enjoyed more than a decade at the top of Hollywood's studio system. The film itself was light, elegant, and romantic, very much in keeping with the persona that had once made him a star. But the industry around him was changing rapidly. Television was beginning to pull audiences away from theaters, younger actors were rising, and the kind of polished, studio-crafted romances that Ameche excelled in were slowly falling out of fashion. In Slightly French, Ameche played John Kilbourne, a sophisticated, well-mannered man drawn into a romantic relationship built on charm, misunderstanding, and gentle comedy.
That gives me an idea. Yeah? The picture. That's the girl for your picture.
No. That's over and done with. Forgotten, finished, and through.
All right, fog your glasses. Besides, she'd never do it anyway.
Why?
She doesn't like pictures. And her family'd never let her do it. Never, never.
With all that talent?
She just uses it to entertain her friends like us. Too bad, too. Think what that'd put you with J.B. if you could salvage the picture.
Well, let's go over and talk to her.
Okay. But remember, don't mention pictures.
His character was calm, mature, and emotionally controlled, far removed from the energetic musical leads of his earlier years. Ameche leaned into subtle humor and restrained romance, relying on experience rather than sparkle. Critics regarded the film with polite appreciation rather than enthusiasm. Reviews described Slightly French as pleasant and tasteful, but also noted that it felt somewhat old-fashioned for the late 1940s. While Ameche's performance was praised for its professionalism and grace, many reviewers sensed that this style of storytelling belonged to an earlier era. Trade papers acknowledged that Ameche remained a skilled actor, but suggested that the film reflected Hollywood's shifting priorities rather than any decline in his talent. An interesting piece of trivia is that Slightly French came at a time when Ameche was increasingly questioning his place in the industry. Though still respected, he was no longer the first choice for leading roles at Fox. This film effectively became one of his final appearances as a traditional studio-era romantic lead, marking the end of a dominant chapter in his career. Though his peak as a studio-era leading man ended with the 1940s, these films ensured his place in cinema history. They laid the foundation for one of the most surprising and celebrated comebacks decades later, proving that Don Ameche's talent, once established, never truly faded. After World War II, Hollywood itself began to change, and Don Ameche changed with it. The lavish musical comedies and polished romantic dramas that had once defined his stardom slowly faded from dominance. Younger actors emerged, audience tastes shifted, and Ameche found himself offered fewer major film roles. But unlike many stars of his generation, he did not disappear. Instead, he adapted. Rather than chasing fading movie fame, Ameche shifted smoothly into theater and television, media that valued experience, voice, and presence, qualities he had spent decades perfecting. On stage, he appeared in Broadway and touring productions, where his discipline and command of dialogue earned him consistent respect. Television, still a growing medium, provided steady work and introduced him to a new audience. Among his television appearances, one of the most famous was The Love Boat, where Ameche appeared as a distinguished older gentleman, charming and self-assured, reflecting the elegance audiences still associated with him. His presence added gravitas and nostalgia, reminding viewers that he had once been a major Hollywood leading man. Though brief, such roles helped keep his name alive during years when many contemporaries faded into obscurity. By the late 1970s, however, few could have predicted what came next. Then, in 1983, Don Ameche staged one of the most surprising comebacks in Hollywood history with Trading Places. Cast as Mortimer Duke, one half of a pair of ruthless, wealthy brothers who treat human lives as social experiments, Ameche reinvented himself overnight. Gone was the gentle romantic lead. In his place was a cold, elitist villain with icy arrogance and razor-sharp delivery. Ameche's performance was unforgettable. He played Mortimer Duke with controlled cruelty, making every insult sound polished and devastating. Many, seeing him for the first time, were stunned to learn that this commanding villain was portrayed by a man whose career stretched back to the 1930s. The film's massive success didn't just revive Ameche's career, it reintroduced him to an entirely new generation. Just 2 years later came the defining moment of his late career. In Cocoon, 1985, Ameche delivered a performance that would redefine how Hollywood viewed aging actors. Playing Art Selwyn, a restless, mischievous senior citizen who regains vitality after exposure to alien life force, Ameche brought the role extraordinary energy and emotional depth. He didn't play youth. He played the joy of rediscovering life. What made his performance so powerful was its balance. Ameche was funny without being silly, emotional without being sentimental. He conveyed wonder, excitement, fear, and reflection with remarkable authenticity. Audiences didn't see an old man pretending to be young. They saw a human being rediscovering possibility. Critics were deeply moved. Reviews praised his performance as joyful, heartbreaking, and honest, calling it the emotional heart of the film. At age 77, Don Ameche won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor, delivering one of the most celebrated acceptance speeches in Oscar history. His win was more than personal triumph. It became a symbol of perseverance and artistic longevity. The success of Cocoon led him to reprise the role in Cocoon, The Return, 1988, where he once again brought warmth and humanity to Art Selwyn, further solidifying his late career legacy. Don Ameche's comeback wasn't just rare, it was historic. He proved that talent doesn't expire with age, and that an actor's most meaningful work can sometimes come decades after their supposed peak. Few careers in Hollywood history tell a story as inspiring as his. Away from the cameras and studio lights, Don Ameche lived a life that stood in quiet contrast to the excesses of Hollywood. In 1932, long before fame fully embraced him, he married Honorée Prendergast, the woman who would remain the anchor of his life for more than 5 decades. Together, they built a family of 6 children, a rarity in an industry often defined by instability and fleeting relationships. While Ameche played romantics, rogues, and heroes on screen, at home he was deeply traditional, devoted, disciplined, and firmly grounded in his Catholic faith. Even at the height of his popularity in the late 1930s and 1940s, Ameche resisted the temptations of celebrity culture. He preferred quiet evenings with his family over Hollywood parties and publicity-driven glamour. Colleagues often noted that he would leave sets promptly to return home, choosing domestic life over socializing. This commitment earned him a reputation as one of the industry's most reliable family men, an image that remained intact throughout his long career. When Honorée passed away in 1986, after more than 50 years of marriage, the loss deeply affected him. Yet he continued working with dignity and focus, honoring the life they had built together. In an era notorious for scandal, Don Ameche's name was rarely associated with controversy. Still, he was not entirely immune to the rumors that followed stars of his stature. During the 1940s, particularly at the height of his musical and romantic films, there were occasional whispers of flirtations with co-stars. These stories, however, never developed into confirmed affairs, nor did they damage his reputation. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Ameche avoided public drama, and no serious scandal ever overshadowed his personal life. More tangible were his professional tensions with 20th Century Fox. By the mid-1940s, Ameche had begun to feel constrained by the studio system. He reportedly grew frustrated with the roles being offered and with salary disagreements, believing that the studio no longer valued him as it once had. These disputes led to strained relations with Fox and contributed to his gradual decline as a leading man by the end of the decade. Some insiders also described him as difficult at times, noting that he could challenge directors or question creative decisions. Yet others strongly disagreed, praising his preparation, punctuality, and unwavering professionalism. To many who worked closely with him, Ameche was not difficult. He was simply serious about his craft. As the years passed, Ameche transformed from a former matinee idol into a respected elder statesman of Hollywood. Even in his later years, he remained remarkably active, taking on film roles, television appearances, and voice work with enthusiasm. His cameo return as Mortimer Duke in Coming to America, 1988, delighted audiences who remembered his villainous turn in Trading Places. That same year, his performance in Things Change earned critical acclaim, once again reminding critics of his depth and subtlety. His final screen appearance came in Corrina, 1994, released after his death, a gentle closing note to a career that spanned nearly 6 decades. Don Ameche remained mentally sharp, gracious, and deeply respected until the very end. On December 6, 1993, he passed away in Scottsdale, Arizona, after a battle with prostate cancer. He was 85 years old. In death, as in life, there was no spectacle, only dignity. He was laid to rest beside his beloved wife, Honorée, closing the final chapter of a life marked not by scandal or excess, but by endurance, talent, and quiet integrity.